Good evening, St. Lucia. Good evening to all the listeners of Sky FM, and good evening to all our viewers who are on Facebook and who are also watching us tonight on GVD television. I'm sure everyone is seeing a strange face tonight, and you might be expecting your usual Ricky Alexander. And certainly, as you can see, this is not Ricky. My name is Nancy Charles, for those of you who don't know, and I am the Director of Implementation in the Office of the Prime Minister. However, I am also a card-carrying member of the United Workers' Party and a senior member of the party. So tonight, I am your host for Constituency Vibes. Ricky is not feeling well tonight. He's under the weather, and so I've been asked to step in. You know, sometimes, St. Lucia, you have to be a little bit of a jack of all trades. You are master of a few, but this one is not one that I am a master of. Nevertheless, I will try my best this evening. I am sitting at the console tonight. I have a team of 2 who's going to be assisting me. I am apologizing if I do make any blunders in terms of when you call and which one to switch on and which one to switch off, but I will get it nonetheless. I have been told that I'm a fast learner. So this evening, welcome to Constituency Vibes. I have to say to you tonight that we do not have a guest, but I am sure that the callers tonight, when you call, and perhaps the information that I will be sharing with you tonight, it will make up for not having a guest. So to begin, I will do like our normal host. He's given me a sheet of paper that says house cleaning rules for calling the Constituency Vibes radio show. So I want to let you know that it is not because Ricky is not in the house that you think you can take advantage of this pretty little lady sitting here, but I will enforce the rules as per the request of Mr. Alexander. So let's go to the rules. The rules are: thou shalt not use language that is defamatory, insulting, offensive, or slanderous to the host, guest, and public officials or persons in general. Thou shalt not listen to thyself on the radio, as it may cause feedback or echo. Thou shalt turn your radio down. You will be able to hear the host through your phone, so please turn your radio down. Thou shalt practice good etiquette when expressing your viewpoint. 5. Thou shalt choose to identify the area that thou art calling from. 6. Thou shalt respect the views of other callers without making insults and abuses with reference to previous callers, even though you may disagree with the caller's point of view. Thou shalt be gentle and civil at all times. So listeners, viewers, again, let me say welcome to Constituency Vibes. And I wish to remind you that this is a program that focuses on this government's holistic approach to sustainable development in a people-centered way to deliver progress and growth to the people, constituency by constituency. This is pivoted on the concepts of economic viability, environmental soundness, and social equity. Within this development framework, the government's approach to growth attainment encompasses development of a sustainable society, conservation of biodiversity, development of human potential, promotion of public participation. This, listeners and viewers, are at the heart of this government's focus on building a new St. Lucia, which is pivoted on a people-centered and community approach, which is geared towards harnessing growth and prosperity, a focus on our nation building through promoting peace, and forging meaningful partnerships in the broader framework to advance our economic interest. This is done through a broad philosophy of planned strategic thinking designed to fight the wrongs that needs resistance and to help the causes which needs assistance. This government's development approach, visionary and forward-thinking by the leadership of Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chastanet, views meaningful participatory development as a process of planned change or managed learning. Now, viewers, I want to tell you that Ricky gave me this to read. So even if I may not have understood more than half of what is there, I am following his instructions. But tonight, we're going to have some fun. As I said, we do not have a guest tonight. But in keeping with the constituency vibes, in keeping with the focus of the program, we will be looking at constituency development. And so tonight, I have to say that I am going to be a bit biased because I am from the South, and so in many instances I prefer to speak about things that I know, things that I am more comfortable speaking about. And being from the South, I want to take you down the development path of the South as proposed by the Honorable Prime Minister. So tonight, I want to focus a little bit on the appropriations bill as presented by the Honorable Prime Minister last week. We had the debates, and I'm sure some of you or most of you did listen, and you went, you probably listened to the reruns on NTN, and most likely St. Lucia, you glimpsed a bit of what the Prime Minister was saying. But tonight, it's a gentle reminder, and perhaps it's another opportunity for you, St. Lucia, to call, to speak to the development that you see happening in the South and perhaps in other areas of St. Lucia. Now, I know a lot of people in the Cashieres Basin and in the Dennery Basin feel a little bit jealous many times when the Prime Minister speaks, because his focus a lot of the times is on the development of the South. And that is, as we said, because of the visionary leadership of the Prime Minister and the potential that he sees for the South. These were some of the things that St. Lucians, when the Prime Minister spoke when we were in opposition, he spoke about the potential for development in the South and how we are missing out on that level of development. And St. Lucia, I am pleased to say that being in government for the last 5 years, the Prime Minister has kept true to his words. His focus has been on the holistic development of St. Lucia. However, he has made extra additional effort to ensure that we can focus on the development of the South, building a strong and a solid foundation for the South of the island to ensure that we can continue to have development in St. Lucia and not leaving the South behind. If it is one thing I know that the Prime Minister and this government is very passionate about, is the fact that you have some sort of a brain drain from the South, when everybody from the South, because there are not enough or sufficient opportunities for development, for job and for employment, they move to the North. They leave their families behind. They travel every day. Even people like myself, we travel every day to go up North. And at the end of the day, the Prime Minister believes that persons should be maybe closer to home. You need to work closer to home to spend more quality time with your family and to take care of perhaps personal things that you need to take care in and around your area. And so the development and the thrust or the focus of the development as well is to ensure that we can keep our people in the South, we can keep them closer to home and create more opportunities for those who wish to stay in the South. So St. Lucia, let's begin. I will be playing for you this evening a few little tidbits from the Prime Minister's presentation during his rebuttal at the parliamentary debate. However, this evening I would like to begin with what we call the budget address, or the appropriation bill, as is the legal term. And so I will be reading a few snippets from different pages to begin our program. And then I will open the lines a little later so you can make your calls. And so you can, as I read perhaps, and as we play some of the Prime Minister's presentation, you can write down your questions, some of the concerns that you have, and even if some of them may not have been part of the presentation, but there is a burning question that you have, you can ask us tonight on constituency vibes. So Let's go. I'm reading from page 6 of the Prime Minister's budget speech, and on page 6, the heading is Crossroads. And the Prime Minister says, Mr. Speaker, the 2021-2022 appropriation bill finds us in St. Lucia at two distinct pathways. The first is that, barring any resurgence in the form of a fourth wave, we could well be at the beginning of the end stage of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is not a prediction, but I believe that given the continuing success of the vaccination programs that are currently ongoing all over the world, especially in our main source markets, we are likely to begin the process of returning soon to some semblance of normalcy. And so St. Lucia, the Prime Minister is laying the foundation for us in terms of his appropriation bill. And he said, Mr. Speaker, as we reflect on our experiences with the COVID-19 pandemic, we are now even more convinced that the medium-term development strategy, which I detailed to this Honorable House a year ago, has served us in good stead and has provided us with clear priorities and directions to take on COVID-19. The programs in the medium-term development strategy are shown to be the right ones to not only manage the COVID-19 pandemic, but also to position St. Lucia to participate and compete in the global economy on a path of excellence and resilience. And so St. Lucia, you would note, as the Prime Minister said, that the team at Economic Development, in collaboration with the Ministry of Finance, had prepared what we call medium-term development strategies. These were key areas of focus that the government identified, that in the medium term, if we develop those goals, if we develop those strategies, it will be towards the benefit of St. Lucia. And as you can see, because we were so forward-thinking in putting together those medium-term development strategies, they assisted us tremendously in managing and battling the COVID-19 pandemic. I will take you to another page that I wish to read for you on page 10, speaking on the domestic performance of St. Lucia. On page 10, on the domestic performance, this is speaking to how St. Lucia performed domestically vis-a-vis regional and international performance. And it says, Mr. Speaker, in line with the deep contractions in global and regional economic activity, St. Lucia's domestic economy in 2020 is estimated by the Central Statistical Office to have contracted by 20.4%. Output in the tourism sector is estimated to have declined by 60% in 2020. I just want to stop there and to inform you that what the Prime Minister is doing in this section of the appropriation bill is laying the foundation and showing St. Lucia what the impact of COVID-19 was or has been on our economy. And later on, I will show you that despite the impact of COVID-19 on those various sectors of the economy, when I speak to the economic outlook, you can see that St. Lucia is still projected to do very well. And so it says that output in the tourism sector is estimated to have declined by about 60% in 2020 as a result of the decline in the number of visitors to St. Lucia, which fell by almost 65% compared to the previous year when we recorded 1.297 million visitors. And so St. Lucia, you would appreciate that when the pandemic hit very early in the year, during the months from the month of about March, ending of March into April, we had the various shutdowns. We had to close our airport. We had to close to visitors, and we did not reopen to our visitors to our tourism sector all the way in July. And so there would have certainly been an impact of the pandemic during that time. And even when we reopened in July, it was with revised protocols. It was very cautiously. So you just had a trickle effect of visitors coming into the country, and therefore there would have been a severe impact on tourism. He says that, Mr. Speaker, in 2020, our economy experienced the combined effects of the near absence of the cruise ship sector. And you would remember that during that time, the cruise sector was adversely impacted, which supplied an average of over 700,000 visitors and an almost 70% decline in stayover arrivals, which totaled just over 130,000. The construction sector was also adversely affected by the pandemic in different ways, including there were delays and disruptions from the effects of protocols like the closures and curfews. And you would have appreciated that because you had not only St. Lucia, who closed perhaps their borders, you had all our supplier countries, they had to close their borders. So you had very little shipping in and out coming in. You also had shortages because persons who would normally be manufacturing some of the products perhaps that we would have needed for the construction sectors, those persons were also homebound, those persons were not allowed to go to work, and so that resulted in a number of delays. So when we say those things, sometimes our opposers, they may think and may want to say that we are making excuses, but that is the reality that we faced in 2020. These were some of the realities that we faced in 2020. In order to support the sector, the government fast-tracked projects and increased public sector expenditure to just over 200 million on pre-planned projects to stimulate the economy. And then, Lucia, I just want to make a little stop here because this is one of the things that our opposers has never appreciated or never understood when it came to the pandemic and the construction sector. The expectation from some of them is that we should not have continued with our project. But as the Prime Minister has explained time and time again, and other members of his cabinet has explained, the genius of this cabinet in continuing those public sector projects cannot be underestimated. St. Lucians would appreciate the fact that we kept those projects ongoing, the fact that we allowed over $200 million to continue to circulate in the economy. It also had an impact on unemployment to ensure that persons who would have normally been unemployed, they retained their jobs. It created opportunities for persons as well who perhaps did not have certain opportunities, and because we kept the construction sector going, it created new opportunities for persons to have different types of businesses. And so at the end of the day, St. Lucia and St. Lucians benefited tremendously from that over $200 million that on pre-planned projects that was allowed to continue to stimulate the economy. Given closures and employment losses in the tourism and elsewhere, private sector construction activity in 2020 was insufficient to stave off all an overall contraction in the sector, which was estimated at 9.9%. And so, St. Lucia, you would appreciate if we did not continue some of those pre-planned projects, the contraction would have been a lot more than 9.9%. He continues to say that, Mr. Speaker, the agricultural sector was also not spared the ravages of the pandemic, and it contracted by 9.5% in the face of an array of supply challenges, as well as depressed domestic demand due to the closure of hotels and restaurants. And I think a lot of our farmers who are listening to us tonight also understood that, because most of them, or a lot of them, were supplying the hotels and restaurants, and because of the closure of the hotels and restaurants, you would see that there would have been a decline in the demand domestically for some of the agricultural products, and so you would have had a 9.5% contraction. He says, Mr. Speaker, the critical importance of tourism is further demonstrated by the fact that most subsectors of agriculture that supply the tourism industry, such as the non-banana agriculture, livestock, local fishing, as well as the emerging new sectors like CMOS production, among others, posted contractions in performance on account of the loss of the critical demand provided by the tourism market. And so St. Lucia, the Prime Minister was open and was honest. There was nothing that we hid from the St. Lucian public. A lot of the information could be found in the Social and Economic Review for 2020. However, we have some very good news. The good news on page 12 in terms of the economic outlook, and I just want to read 2 sections for you before we go into some of the Prime Minister's budget statement. In terms of the economic outlook, the Prime Minister said on page 12, Mr. Speaker, the IMF in its latest World Economic Outlook released on April 6, 2021, has revised its earlier GDP growth projections upward. An expansion of the global economy of 6% is now expected for 2021, with growth ranging between 3.3% to 6.4% for advanced economies, including the US, the UK, Canada, and the Euro area. The US is expected to exceed its pre-pandemic GDP levels in 2021, while others will return to pre-COVID levels later in 2022 and 2023. And on page 13, the St. Lucia Economic Outlook, it says, meanwhile, St. Lucia is poised to experience a partial economic recovery in 2021 as well. This will be driven by an expected increase in economic activity in the second half of 2021. Public sector construction is expected to drive growth in 2021 as a result of the timely implementation of various major pre-planned projects aimed at upgrading the core infrastructure, among other initiatives. Most of these are in the form of shovel-ready projects which are ongoing, while others are in the cusp of commencement. In addition, the tourism sector is expected to partly recover and boost overall economic activity with positive impacts on investor and consumer confidence. Increased activity is also expected from the increased ease of doing business as consumers and businesses continue to adapt to the new normal. And so consequently, St. Lucia, like the rest of the region and the world, remains vulnerable to external shocks which pose downside risk. These risks include unforeseen delays in the execution of construction activities, the impact of extreme weather events, retained travel restrictions and protocols which may constrain the pace of a tourism rebound, and increased pressures on public finances. Mr. Speaker, these are all very real threats, but I am confident that we have weathered the worst of this storm. Visionary leadership, St. Lucia. The commitment we made in 2016 to building a new St. Lucia and the plan to build resilience has created that foundation for us to continue to strengthen this nation. St. Lucia, I am reading again, for those of you perhaps are joining us a little late, I am reading the Prime Minister's budget address for the financial year 2021 to 2022, and I am giving you just a brief synopsis of some of the economic outlook projected by the Honorable Prime Minister for 2021. And so tonight, before we go into the Prime Minister's budget rebuttal statement to look at some of those shovel-ready projects that the Prime Minister has spoken about, I just want to give you a briefing on the Citizens Guide. The Ministry of Finance has prepared what we call the Citizen Guide to the 2021-2022 budget. More or less, it's just a summary of the appropriation bill and some of the initiatives. It speaks to the budget, how it is prepared, what the expenditure is, what the income, the revenue generation is, where our money goes, where we get money from, who we're going to borrow the money from, etc. But I want to take you to page 15 of this to speak to policy initiatives. So some of the policy initiatives by the Honorable Prime Minister, as he indicated, that we are expected to see some growth. We're expected to see increased economic activity, and based on that, you have some of those economic activities as indicated by the Prime Minister that is going to contribute to that economic outlook that we spoke about. And so economic infrastructure, I want you to listen very carefully to some of the policy initiatives. Most of the infrastructure initiatives are funded using concessional sources, grants or concessional loans. And St. Lucia, for concessional loans, I did read somewhere in this that there was a debt financing policy, and we as we look for funding, loans, and even with some of the financial institutions, we are looking for more concessions, meaning that they give us a longer period to pay, but lower interest rates, etc. And that would be towards the benefit of St. Lucia, and it does not put too much pressure on us in repaying our debts on a monthly basis. Our National Road Infrastructure Project. Some of them would be the Millennium Highway West Coast Road Rehabilitation Upgrade. This project should commence shortly. I have been informed, I think Prime Minister indicated yesterday, that anytime from now we should see at least some preliminary works commencing on the Millennium Highway West Coast Road Rehabilitation Upgrade. The reconstruction of the cul-de-sac bridge, this is currently ongoing. Those of you who travel perhaps from the south to come up to the north, or those who come from Soufrière Ancillary, you would see construction happening in the cul-de-sac area, and this is the reconstruction of the cul-de-sac bridge, and this project is ongoing. We have the road improvement and maintenance program, and these are a lot of road rehabilitation projects being undertaken throughout the length and breadth of St. Lucia. These are all the roads, St. Lucia, that we have been rehabilitating over the last few months, and that is what is having our friends opposite going crazy, to the fact that they keep saying people not eating roads, people not eating roads, people not eating roads. But St. Lucia, you and I would appreciate, and as the Prime Minister has already laid the groundwork, that when we came into office in 2016, the roads in St. Lucia were a mess. There was no rehabilitation on hardly any primary road in St. Lucia. Bus drivers were complaining, commuters were complaining, and people were just asking what is going on with our roads. And in addition to that, there was an increase in the road license fee. So all these things was creating a lot of friction. And I want to say thanks. I have always admired the Prime Minister for this in terms of the road improvement project and the financing of that project. St. Lucia, you would remember that the Prime Minister has always indicated that for new programs and for the financing of these new programs, the intention is to ensure that you can get a source of funding, and so that you do not create increased pressure on the public purse. You do not increase or put in too many taxes on the public to be able to finance some of those projects. And so I understand a lot of persons, perhaps you don't get it, but I want you to get it tonight, that the $1.50 tax that we have put on fuel, this money is what goes directly, and that's why when Kenny Anthony said he was not able to raise money, I want you to take this seriously, St. Lucia, because really and truly he had no creative way of thinking. So he couldn't borrow money. The Labour Party could not borrow money. They couldn't go to financial institutions to borrow money, but they could not find a creative way of raising money either. And so under the leadership of Alan Chasney, he says, listen, we need money. We need to fix those roads. How do we do it? And so we decided to create this fund where you would have now $1.50 tax on the fuel, and that money would go directly into a lockbox, and that is the money that you would use once you have sufficiently built up the capacity to say to a financial institution, I have a lockbox, I have X amount, I'm expecting to have, let's say, $32 million every year. I need to build roads amounting to $100 million. If I use this lockbox and the money that I have, it's almost like a deposit, St. Lucia. You go to the bank, you want to borrow $100,000, but you need a deposit to borrow it. And so that lockbox What it was essentially is like our deposit, our security, to say to the financial institution, we have $1.50 tax coming in. It goes into this lock box, and can we use it to borrow money against it to build the road? And so, St. Lucia, that is the creative thinking you have in a prime minister like Alan Shastney in coming up with those concepts, and we were very successful. It was novel, it was new, but we were successful in being able to source financing to rehabilitate all those roads throughout the length and breadth of St. Lucia. And so thanks to the visionary leadership of this Prime Minister, the team at the Ministry of Finance, the Cabinet of Ministers for supporting him, we have ongoing our road improvement and maintenance program. And we also have under that program our National Road Rehabilitation Program as well. And we have the Grosile and Castries North Roads project. The people in Grosile would say spider again, because I'm telling you, in every little nook and cranny in the Grosile constituency, and maybe when people from Grosile call tonight St. Lucia, you would hear from them how pleased they are that Spider has been able to touch at least every little area in the constituency of Grosile and also in the constituency of Castries North. Honorable Stevenson King has also been able to have that impact on his constituency. So the road improvement project, I can tell you, has touched mostly every single constituency in the south. It has touched Vieux Fort North, Vieux Fort South. It has touched Soufrière Soisel area. It has touched the Dennery area, Micoud area. Every single constituency in St. Lucia can boast of having at least one or two of some of the either the main national road or some of the feeder road or smaller roads being rehabilitated under this project. And so in this financial year, we have $120.5 million that is allocated to the Department of Infrastructure for the Road Infrastructure Program. And then under the Disaster of Vulnerability Reduction Project, we call it the DVRP, we have an additional EC $25.9 million that has been allocated for the rehabilitation of one, the Vanna to Venus Road. I'm sure the people from Vanna would be happy to hear that. And the PI Bridge and the Vanna to Ancillary Road. So under the DVRP, in this financial year, we have an allocation of $25.9 million that has been allocated for these three pieces of road. The PI Bridge in particular, I think this has been a pet peeve of Minister Bradley Felix, who has advocated for the longest time for that PI Bridge. I'm sure St. Lucia will remember or know that I think what we have there is what we call something called a Bailey Bridge that was supposed to be a temporary bridge. If I am right, I think it's since around the time of Thomas, Hurricane Thomas, and that temporary Bailey Bridge has been there since. And so it is definitely in need of rehabilitation and having a proper bridge connecting PI to the south and also to the rest of St. Lucia. For local road and community infrastructure, we have an allocation of $10.7 million, and for sustainable water infrastructure, the allocation is $24.2 million. The local road and community infrastructure project, this is investment at the community level. It is allocated to the Constituency Development Program. And this is at least the $10 million will be grants received from the Republic of China, Taiwan, and then the $24.2 million will be funded by the Caribbean Development Bank, and that is allocated to the Vieux Fort Water Supply Redevelopment Project. That project is currently happening in my constituency, which is in Grace Vieux Fort. It's also happening in Vieux Fort South at the water plant area that we call it's down in Beauséjour. I think it's also going to be impacting the Labrie constituency, the Auger and Labrie constituency as well. So that water project is going to have a huge impact on the entire south of the island. Under the tourism development, St. Lucia, we have the Village Tourism Project, and the Village Tourism Project in this financial year is going to impact the constituency of Ancillary in the Ancillary village. There will be a construction of restaurants on the waterfront in Soufrière and in Ancillary. There will be upgrades of houses near the waterfront in Ancillary. I know some of this has commenced. Construction of vending facilities in Palmy, Soufrière, waterfront development and upgrade to the recreational park in Grosile, and enhancement of the jetty in both Grosile and Ancillary. And so you can see, St. Lucia, that these projects are impacting every single constituency, and that's what we aim to educate you and inform you about here on Constituency Vibes, how the government's national initiatives are impacting us at the constituency level. We also have a very critical project that is ongoing. It's called the OECS Regional Tourism Competitiveness Project. And under phase 1 of that project, we had the first phase of the Casheries Market redevelopment. And so in this financial year, we also had phase 1 of the redevelopment of the Derrick Walcott Square. Those of you who walk around the city would see that we have opened up the square, we have taken down the walls, we have made it more inclusive, and so on a daily basis you see people either going into the square, sitting around it, walking through the square. So it's just opened up the city in a way that we have never seen before. And under phase 2 of the Casheries Market, phase 2 of the Regional Tourism Competitiveness Project, we will see phase 2 of the Casheries Market redevelopment. So we only had phase 1 that impacted the vendors. In phase 2, you're going to have a greater impact and development of the market. Phase 2 of the redevelopment of the Derrick Walcott Square, we're going to have the upgrade of the Canneries waterfront, upgrades to the Sozel Arts and Crafts Center, and upgrades of the Old Trafford complex in Soufrière. We also have an allocation under the creative sector support, and that allocation would go towards the celebration of our indigenous festivals. A hybrid of virtual and face-to-face elements would be incorporated, since we are still on the revised protocols, but we try as much as possible to ensure that COVID does not keep us down from celebrating some of our indigenous festivals. And so some of these activities is geared to put money directly in the hands of those within the creative industry. Under our policy initiatives with reference to health, I know one of the things that is dear to the heart of every St. Lucian since the announcement. I have to apologize to St. Lucia. As a matter of fact, today I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said to him, I really did not understand or appreciate the level of work that we would have to undertake to initiate the national health insurance. And so whilst when we spoke about it, it sounded that it was very simple and easy, but there were a lot of technical things to iron out for that program. And so persons who would have been hearing the Prime Minister speak about it time and time again, I have to say to you, we're at the point now where we have gone and done a lot of the preliminary work, a lot of the assessment. We have fine-tuned, we have dotted a lot of our I's and crossed a lot of our T's. And so very soon we're at the point where we will begin implementation very early in this new financial year. With the support from the World Bank, we will be able to operationalize at least an initial phase of the National Health Insurance Program. And St. Lucia, that National Health Insurance Program, I want you, when we speak about National Health Insurance, we don't speak to what those oppositors speak about, healthcare. What is it they call it? I can't even remember. But ours is National Health Insurance, where what the Prime Minister or the intention of this program is that you are contributing, or we are contributing to a pool, just like when you have a health insurance plan with an insurance company. And so when you have to go to the doctor, and when you have to get your visits, and you have to get your scans, or if anything, you need to go to see the eye specialist or for your dental, you do not need money upfront. And so that will not be a deterrent for you to go to the doctor or to visit your doctor. You would be able to go either with a card or with a letter or something to say, I am part of this National Health Insurance Initiative. You would be able to access healthcare, and your health insurance company will be the one to foot the bill, to pay, and to ensure that you can access it. And that is the vision of the Prime Minister, in that we understand, and we've seen over the years that people wait on because of the financial implications of seeking medical care, that sometimes they have no money and they're not feeling well, but because they do not have the money, they do not go to the doctor, and it may have been something that could have been prevented had they been able to visit the doctor a little bit earlier. But because they're not able to do that, what you find happening is that they stay home, and then when they can't take it no more, they go to the hospital, and then this sickness has escalated to the point where they need greater care, where it is more expensive to care for them. It leads to lifelong illnesses, etc. And so the vision of our national health insurance is that in the short run, it is to ensure persons can access healthcare, but in the long run, it will reduce on those illnesses and long-term illnesses that we are experiencing in St. Lucia, because what would happen is now, because persons now have access to care, you do not need to have money upfront to go. Once you are not feeling well, you're able to go to the doctor, and you'll have early detection that will prevent a lot of long-term implications. And so for our healthcare people, and for our elderly folks, for our young folks, and for everybody, this national health insurance will be incorporating everybody. The challenge has been because we have insisted that it must include pre-existing conditions. So persons should not or cannot be denied care because they have a pre-existing condition. That has had its challenges, but I want to guarantee you that this is what we are working towards, that every single St. Lucian can access healthcare via the national health insurance that we are proposing in this financial year. Under housing settlement development, there are sites and services for 2021-2022 to provide approximately 133 lots in Lafargue, Pi, Monnier, and Wishbois, which is in Tiroche-Mikoud. There is the commencement of 2 housing developments in Bele and Otsa that will hopefully impact on at least another 200 households. There's a housing development in Choc, Talvan, and Boisjoli will also gather pace, and a review of the National Housing Policy and Strategic Action Plan that will be undertaken this year is most opportune. St. Lucia, I know a lot of young persons are looking forward to own a piece of St. Lucia, to have their own home, and so hopefully some of those developments that we speak about will help them in deciding whether they want to live in Lafargue or Pi, or you want to go in Bele or in Otsa. And to be able to live in those communities and to own a piece of St. Lucia. Under our citizen security, and remember, St. Lucia, we're still speaking to our policy initiatives for the 2021-2022 financial year. For those who keep saying that there was nothing in the budget and they didn't know what is it the government is going to do, I am just reminding you of some of the policy positions. I am letting you know that your government has a plan. These are some of the initiatives that we have, hence the reason you need to continue with the government of the United Workers' Party, because this is the party with the visionary leadership. This is the party that has a plan for the development of St. Lucia. And when we came to you in 2016, we told you that we were building a new St. Lucia. Si zo pate kwe, nou te bouizen fe an St. Lucien nef, you would see now St. Lucia, there were so many things that were damaged, so many things in St. Lucia that was not happening, that this government has had to build from scratch because everything was in a dilapidated condition. And so under our citizen security, we're looking at the police headquarters and court facilities. So during this financial year, we're hoping to commence work on the construction of a complex that will house the headquarters of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force and a remand facility. The facility will be constructed by a bolt arrangement. During the 2021-2022, the government of St. Lucia will also undergo a full rehabilitation of the Vieux-Fort police station. St. Lucia, that police station is in dire need of rehabilitation. It has been closed for a while. I know that the police officers in the south are looking forward to go back to this facility, and so during this financial year there will be a rehabilitation of that police station. We will be pursuing a home for the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, a headquarters to be located here in St. Lucia. The Grosile police station will get a new home. We will have the strengthening of the office of the DPP, or I should say a further strengthening, because when we came in, we have done a lot of work. We have given a lot of support to the office of the DPP, and so we will further strengthen the office of the DPP. We will be assisting the magistrates court to go digital. This is the way to go, the way of technology. There will be repairs to the 2nd District Court building and the commencement of the Judicial Reform and Institutional Strengthening Project. We will also be assisting the High Court to go digital as well. So your magistrate and your High Court, we're beginning the digital, bridging the digital divide with those two. And the Benches Trial Committee was established. In terms of the forensic laboratory, St. Lucia, as you know, when we came in, the forensic lab was closed. We had to spend some money to renovate. We had to fix the roof. We had a lot of work to do in there, but I'm very pleased to say that the work has paid off. The forensic laboratory has been doing a lot of work in terms of crime scenes and in terms of reducing the backlog of some of the testing and some of the testing they had at the forensic lab. Imagine we had a forensic lab, St. Lucia, and we had to pay money to send a lot of our forensic samples overseas to be tested, and we were spending money to test it overseas, whilst we had a lab here that had the same capacity, as a matter of fact, to do so. And so right now our forensic lab is up and running. In this financial year, I can see it says that a new area of expertise called firearms examination and analysis will be introduced at the forensic lab. So St. Lucia, when we get those gun-related crimes, the forensic lab will be able to assist now in firearms examination and analysis. This new technology will assist the police force in connecting gun violence to perpetrators. This initiative will entail utilizing technology that would assist in linking crimes through bullet comparison. So some of you, those who watch CSI and you watch all those TV crime drama, you would see all the technology that they have. St. Lucia is getting there under the leadership of Honorable Alan Chasney and the United Workers' Party government. Just before we go into the Prime Minister, just a final on the agriculture. I can tell you that the objective of agriculture is to broaden our capacity to feed our country and to reduce our reliance on external sources. And so you would have heard a lot about our 7 crops project. These were 7 crops that the Ministry of Agriculture had identified that we have the capacity to produce more of those crops, and thereby it will assist us in reducing the importation of some of those crops. So for those who say that we have not been doing anything in agriculture, what we have been trying to do is to increase capacity, keep the money here, and allow St. Lucians to consume more of those local products that we can grow here in St. Lucia. And so some of the 7 crops would be cabbage, tomato, lettuce, sweet pepper, watermelons, cantaloupe, and pineapple. And as I said, this was in a bid to reduce the food import bill. We recognized that we were importing quite a lot of those products, and we had the capacity to produce them locally or to produce more locally. I don't think it means that we would not import them entirely, but for some of them we had the capacity to produce and to have self-sufficiency, and for others the capacity to reduce on some of the importation of those products. I have to say thanks very much to the Republic of China on Taiwan, who has assisted us tremendously in this project, and so some of the technical support to be provided under this project includes technical assistance to 200 farmers and to 2 farmer cooperatives, enhancement of post-harvest processing techniques, and establishment of fruit and vegetable packing specifications and materials, training for our extension officers, and establishment of an agricultural intelligence information system based on farmers' production and produce and official market demand. We also have a $6 million allocated to the Banana Productivity Improvement Program. It's the BIP, which is what we call it, and this project focuses on the expansion of acreage under cultivation, pest and disease control, increased productivity of banana farmers, and the establishment of a sustainable finance mechanism. So St. Lucia, I just wanted to read a little bit of some of the policy initiatives as per the Prime Minister's budget address, so that you would clearly, just to remind you that we have a plan, that the government of St. Lucia as it stands, we know where we are going. We're not sailing blindly like some are, and we're not just pulling out policy statement like out of a hat and just making statements and say we will reduce this and we will remove this, and not explaining to St. Lucia how and what the impact of those initiatives will be. And so as we continue, as I said in the beginning, I am a little bit biased. I am from the South, and so tonight I perhaps want you to listen a little bit to some of the plans, or a little bit of the Prime Minister's address in terms of some of the plans for the South, why we chose the South, and why some of the projects from the South. And so in his rebuttal, the Prime Minister started on his constituency, but we will begin with the Southern project. So maybe about 27 minutes into his presentation, he spoke about the South and some of the projects of the South. So I want you to take a listen, St. Lucia. The Prime Minister is going to speak about the DSH racetrack. He's going to speak about the private jet facility that has created jobs in the South. He's going to speak about the Sandy Beach and Zesa project. He's going to speak about the cruise ship terminal, Ojo Labs, etc. And then we will have a discussion after the Prime Minister's presentation.
And I felt it was important because, again, on a conversation where we were talking about the East Castries constituency and some of the difficulties that that constituency has had in reaching its full potential. And I understand, because even for Micoud South, we're not going to reach our full potential unless we develop the South in its entirety. So Vieux Fort and the main city is critical to us being able to keep jobs in the South. And then similarly for Castries East. Castries East is a suburb. And Castries Central is critical to the success of that. So I've maybe taken a different path than the leader of the opposition and the representative from Castries East, in that I've understood that, and that's why we're including the development of Vieux Fort as part of our overall plan. Too many young kids having to migrate up north, either to commute or to live up north, which divides the family and minimizes the resources of the family. So getting Vieux Fort going is important. So the DSH project, the land was there, and I said to the members, it was a tick farm. That's what it was producing. No jobs, no output. And the fact is, we came along, and the part of the land that's being leased is for the horse racing track. And in return for leasing the horse racing track, the developer has taken his own money. And I want to repeat that, taken his own money, over $30 million US, to develop a world-class horse racing track that he promised. And has he done that? The answer is yes. He said that he would create a world-class horse race. Did he do that? Well, in December of 2019, he did that. And as we speak today, there are still young people being employed. And my understanding is there are 40 new horses that are going to come in, because some of the other horse racing tracks in the region are struggling. And now we're going to be sending horses here to St. Lucia to house them here. So we know, again, that that project is poised for a significant takeoff. And I have many young men in my constituency, and even some women, who don't want to be in an office job, Mr. Speaker, who like dealing with animals and want to know now the opportunity of participating in the horse race at this level is available to them in here in St. Lucia, and are excited about the opportunity of seeing this project succeed. Every time we were having events there, the number of young kids that were volunteering and participating and being there on that day, and seeing them all dressed up and being able to get training on how to be tellers. These are new opportunities, Mr. Speaker, that didn't exist. And guess what? This was a piece of land that was not being developed. So 200 plus acres was leased to DSH. in return for them to build the horse racing track, and now the horse racing track has been built. The expansion of the project is continuing. What happened to the project, Mr. Speaker, is very simple. COVID affected China before it affected us. And so the manufacturing plants for those hotels were shut down. They have now been reopened, but demand is so high, we're now trying to get the whole thing back going. But I can assure members, Mr. Speaker, that this project is very much alive and on track, and we're very excited about the expansion opportunities of the university hospital, the small hospital, and the real estate development that's going to be taking place specifically in the old Beausaint-Joux. The Beausaint-Joux farm has now been moved to Volette. I'm very excited to see the development we have there. The new private jet facility in Vieux Fort has now created new jobs and upgraded how people are being received when they come on private planes, and we've seen a significant uptake in the number of private planes coming into St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker. The Sandy Beach, the Andesab project, again, about doing things to allow St. Lucians to participate in the biggest industry in our country. So we're taking 100 acres of land, subdividing it. All the plans have been approved in planning. The last issue that we had to resolve was with SLASPA. As you can see, it's very close to the runway as to what the actual heights of the buildings can be and how far away from the fence we're allowed to develop. I believe that that's now been formalized, and work will begin very soon on the subdivision, and once we do the subdivision, to be able to sell lots to St. Lucians. So that you now can buy a piece of property that has water, electricity, sewage system, and actually has a rational plan. And therefore, the land is actually beachfront land. So the concrete road will become the boardwalk. We're not developing anything other than support facilities on the beach, lifeguard stations, some food outlets, some washroom facilities, some recreational facilities, but we're not building any hotels or apartments on the beach itself. And again now, so everybody who has their business on the other side of the boardwalk has beachfront land. And along with the plans of bringing in a cruise ship terminal into Vieux Fort, this is going to be a significant benefit to local St. Lucians. And the Airbnb projects, the village tourism project that we're doing, all tie in perfectly to what we're currently doing on this location. You know, Mr. Speaker, I heard the members from the opposite side say, oh, the only problem that they had was that they didn't understand the details. It seems to be a recurring theme, Mr. Speaker. I find myself coming to this House and having to repeat ourselves over and over again on basic issues. We had the issue of CIP, if you remember, as to how did it work. We brought documents, we showed where the money was, and yet there was these constant red flags being raised by the members on the opposite side. Ojo's no different. We said from day one, went to see Ojo Labs, which was artificial intelligence, and no leader of the opposition. It's not mind-bending technology. It's commonplace technology that is showing that it has a significant role to play in the world. You see? So, Mr. Speaker, Ojo Labs is very, very simple. This was a building facility that had been empty for 26 years. Let me say that again. The building itself had been empty for 26 years. And Invest St. Lucia spent around $3.5 million, Mr. Speaker, in rehabilitating this facility to become a call center to the standard of Ojo. So when Ojo was starting up in Austin, Texas, they were getting all these incentives, and we were the ones trying to convince them to come to St. Lucia. Luckily for us, the investors in Ojo had actually been in St. Lucia before, and like St. Lucia. In fact, they own property at Sugar Beach. So we said, look, we will outfit the building for you, and what we're going to do is for the first 18 months, we're going to subsidize the salaries. So in the first 6 months of a person coming to be employed at the facility, we will pay $1,000. And for the next year, we'll pay $500 a month. And we would do that for the first 400 employees, and we would only subsidize them for the 18 months. That's it. And Ojo, in return, move their facility here, pay rent on the facility to pay back for the capital costs that we have. And the salaries are from $2,500 to $4,000 plus. So they're paying that difference. So today as we speak, the vast majority of persons who are currently working at Ojo, their entire salary is being paid for by Ojo themselves. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, there was no call centers in the South. And I never heard the opposition talk about bringing call centers to the South, even though those facilities were sitting there empty. Even though when you looked at the level of unemployment of young people, it was much greater in the South than it was in anywhere else in St. Lucia. But there was never the thought or the idea of doing this. But after being successful with it, if I can see the next photograph, next slide, because of the success of Ojo, all of a sudden, when we brought companies to St. Lucia, we brought them to the South. And we had proof to show them that the young people in the South were capable. And artificial intelligence is a grade up from the call from the BPO services. And so what happened is ITEL BPO came here. And they're excited because now they have a training ground. So persons who are at ITEL BPO can potentially upgrade to Ojo. I say upgrade because some people prefer working at ITEL BPO. And likewise, persons who find Ojo and they may be laid off, now have the opportunity of going to work at ITEL BPO. And ITEL BPO have been so excited because again, this was a building that was dormant for over 26 years. Same deal, put in the capital investment for the building, but this time we didn't have to subsidize the jobs because Ojo was the catalyst to break ground to show that we could make this thing happen in the South. And I'm hoping that the members on the opposite side now, who seem to have changed their mind and are now saying, I don't know if it's true because that's what they're saying today, they have a habit of flip-flopping pretty quickly. Today, they're saying that they're not going to close down the labs, but previously they said they were going to shut them down. I get confused sometimes, Mr. Speaker, because sometimes they change so fast, the vacuum, the wind is very disturbing. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm hoping that they're going to be genuine and true to their word this time, Mr. Speaker, that they are, if they do happen to win by hap chance, that they're going to maintain the jobs in the South. But I can say to the young people that it was the United Workers' Party and this administration that created the opportunity. And I'm very proud to say that ITEL BPO started off, Mr. Speaker, with 400 jobs. They have now added another 400, and I'm very, very excited that they have agreed and signed off on a third building in the back, Mr. Speaker, to add another 400 jobs. So between ITEL BPO and Ojo Labs, Mr. Speaker, they're paying salaries in the tune of about $4.5 million a month. $54 million a year, Mr. Speaker, of monies that are being injected into all these households in the South. And that doesn't include the bus transportation and the food feeding programs and everything that's taking place. So, Mr. Speaker, when you go around and you see the level of activity in the South, it didn't happen by chance. The next one we had was the Focapesh.
Thank you very much, my team. There you have it, St. Lucia. I just wanted you to hear from the Prime Minister himself in terms of some of the initiative and the deliberate attempt at developing the South. And so some of them have indicated that it is a ploy because we want to get votes from the South, we want to win the Southern seats, and that's why we are concentrating so much on the South. But I want to remind you, St. Lucia, that from inception, even from opposition, This was one of the priorities and the focus of the United Workers' Party administration. We said to you that when we come into office, because there is so much potential for the South, that we will focus, our administration will focus on building the South. Just like we said we were going to be building a new St. Lucia, traditionally you've had a lot of activities, construction, development happening in the north of the island, but the potential for the south has always been overlooked. In fact, to a certain extent, the potential for the south has always been overlooked. Like, what we can do or what we deserve in the south is the southern belt has been looked as the agriculture belt to a certain extent, and then in the 70s and the 80s and even the early 90s, we had a lot of those factory shells. So you had a lot of factory workers, etc. And once we got to the point where there were no longer opportunities, it became too expensive for some of those factories, those garment manufacturers. You had some of those Disney. I remember there was a company called 209. My mother worked there. I also worked at some of the factories very early in my life. You had electronics factory, etc. Once these things started to go away, and in the 1997, when the Labour administration came in, there was nothing that they came in that was novel and nothing to do with the factory shells. And so, as the Prime Minister indicated, I'm going to start from bottom up, that once you had all those garment factories closing, and you had a lot of these manufacturers going away, the factory shells just remained there. They were empty. They started to deteriorate, and there was just no use for it. And so it took the visionary leadership of an administration and of a prime minister to come in and to say, hey, we have all this potential. We have those factory shells sitting there. What can we do? How do we get and how do we make a conducive environment for investors to come in, to want to come in and to be able to use the potential of our people in the South? I want to remind you that we will be opening up the lines, so you can call as I continue. Remember, I said to you, I do not have a guest tonight, and I'm hoping that I have given you sufficient fodder for you to be able to call and to make your contribution. The number is 4560931. St. Lucia, if you're listening, you can call and you can add your piece to the development that is taking place under this United Workers Administration in St. Lucia. And I am not restricting you to speak only to the development in the South, but you can speak to the development that you have seen in your own constituency, some of the projects and the novel projects that has been undertaken by your parliamentary representative. And Ojo Labs and ITEL BPO, Ojo Labs is one of those novel projects that we spoke about. And St. Lucia, you would remember maybe about 2 or 3 years ago when we came up with the concept of Ojo Lab, the opposition made it seem like it was a dirty and it was a nasty word. And they tell you, remember the Ojo Lab, and you ask them, well, what exactly is Ojo Lab? And they can't explain, because they just want to make it seem that it was a bad thing. And I can tell you that every single thing that we did in St. Lucia for the development of St. Lucia, once it created job, once it created economic activity, you had opposition to those activities. We have a caller. Let me see if we can take this caller. Hello, good night, caller. You are live. If you can tell us where you're calling from, because I can see an international number tonight.
Good night, Nancy. How are you doing?
Good evening. I'm doing well. I'm trying to hold my own. I hope I am making Ricky and St. Lucia proud tonight.
You're doing a wonderful job. Very insightful, very educational. You're educating the people to the great book that our government is doing. So you're doing very well. I'm impressed.
Thank you very much, caller. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Delaware, USA. This is Ian Cauldron.
Oh, hi, Ian. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, just under the weather, but I'm fighting it.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, let's bring something to your attention. I don't know. I thought the Prime Minister would talk. You gave this presentation the day of the Prime Minister's budget rebuttal, and the issue of Ojo Labs came up, and you were talking about and the Prime Minister alluded to the fact that those factories sitting there for years, vacant, unattended, and this government fund sort of had the vision to put it into use, and hence the reason why we have Ojo Labs today, which created over 400 jobs for young people in the South, and that's very commendable. These were young persons who, prior to that, they were unemployed. But I heard in another program, I don't know if it's in Parliament, that the leader of the Philip JPS said that if the Labour Party comes into office, they will close down Ojo Labs. So that is worrying, because the number of young persons who got employed at Ojo Labs, I'm asking the leader of the opposition and the Labour Party, what will happen to those young persons? When you close down Ojo Lab, there are over 400 young persons would be on the breadline. So, and their tagline is people putting people's first, but you cannot put people's first and then you threaten the livelihood of young people.
Well, Ian, yeah, I mean, what you would expect, and I think St. Lucians would agree with me, that the policy position of the Labour Party, I grew up, Labour Party came into office in 1997, and so I was very young around that time, so I was in my early 20s, so I can certainly tell you that most of what we've seen from the Labour Party since they came into office has been the concept of giving you 25 cents every day. So instead of giving you a full dollar that you can invest, or creating an opportunity for you to invest and to become independent, they have created that dependency syndrome. And so for the government to invest in a facility like Ojo Lab, where it gives opportunities for young people to work, to earn, so they do not have to go to a politician, they don't have to go to their parents or someone to ask for something. This is not the mandate of the St. Lucia Labour Party. Their mandate is to ensure that they give these people cents, so that every day they can come back to you and say they can see you as a God, like the great savior, and so they'll continue to support you and vote for you. But they do not understand the concept of the United Workers' Party, where we empower people, and we believe that once we empower you, you would see the merit in that level of empowerment, and you will continue to support us because of that. Not because we feed you every day, but we create an opportunity for you to feed yourself every day.
Exactly, because I remember under the Labour Party, and as you would know, Nancy, and most St. Lucians would know, the objective was unemployment was at its highest. I think it was on 24%, correct me if I'm wrong.
Very much so. It was very high, yes.
And youth unemployment was 44%.
Very high as well.
This government was able to come and significantly reduce particularly the youth unemployment. So it's very worrying to me that the Labour Party would say in a public forum that if they win the elections and assume government, that they will close down Ojo Lab.
But Ian, I wanted to ask you, before you even go on to the next one, in terms of Ojo Labs, what do you think, or what have you heard the Labour Party say that was so wrong about Ojo Labs in terms of the engagement of having Ojo Labs come to St. Lucia? What it is that was wrong about Ojo Labs that they will close it down, and that they want St. Lucians to think that it was not a good thing? Is it the fact that the factory shells were sitting there for over 20 years, as we said, they remained the property, and they still are today the property of the government? And so what the government sought to do via Invest St. Lucia was to renovate those factory shells. And when we renovate them, they remain ours. We didn't renovate it and sell it. We did not renovate it and give it away. We renovated it and we rented it out to Ojo Labs. And so it remains ours and it's being rented. That's one. So if Ojo Labs decide today or tomorrow to leave, you have a renovated, modern facility that you can rent for anyone. That's one. Number two, because we wanted, you give fiscal incentives, Ian, you know that very well, to foreign investors to come in. And fiscal incentives can take the various forms. But in the case of Ojo Labs, we tried to ensure that the incentive we gave them was beneficial more to St. Lucia Lucia to a certain extent done to them. And so the benefit of them and the incentive we gave them was that they could come into St. Lucia, they could establish, they would hire our people, and instead of us giving them money so that they can go towards, that would go towards their pocket or their profits, we said that we will pay part of the salaries of our St. Lucian people who you will hire. So the government essentially was giving the money to our St. Lucian people. The money was not going to Ojo Labs and going into their bank account. The money went towards the St. Lucians who were being hired, and they were being paid, part by the government and part by Ojo. So I want somebody tonight to please explain to me. These were the two main concepts of Ojo Lab. What was wrong about this? Is there anything wrong with this, Ian?
There's nothing wrong with it. It was a worthwhile investment because you're investing in your young people. But juxtapose that to the guarantees that the Labour Party gave to, and they have this tagline again. You see, friends, FFF, friends, foreigners, and family. When the history in government contradicts that, because on the issue of investing, I remember when the Labour Party guaranteed a loan for Russia. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And millions of taxpayers' monies went into Russia, and we don't do it. There was no returns for sending.
There was nothing in it for us.
Juxtapose that to Ojo Labs, where the government made an investment and the local people benefited, young people benefited. So there's a vast contrast there in terms of policy and approach by this government.
For sure.
But just to go on another issue, I heard the Labour Party in Parliament lamenting about the distress fund and trying to make it seem like this government is uncaring. They scrapped the distress fund and all this thing. And the Prime Minister, Guy Joseph, and a couple of officials have to correct that. The government did not stop assisting vulnerable people. What they did, at the time, the distress fund, as you would know, had a cap. I think it was, correct me again if I'm wrong, I think it's $500,000.
That's correct.
And by the time you know, a lot of people they need assistance and they will reach out to the government. So you find that fund was not sufficient. So the government say, instead of putting a cap on that fund, they just made it a fund. And I think Norbert was given that information this morning again, and he said the government spent over $5 million in assistance to the vulnerable people. These are people who lost their homes by a fire, what have you.
And
so
health assistance as well, Ian. And whilst the Labour Party administration was making a big deal about the distress fund, and they had a limited amount. It was limited. When we looked at what and who the funds were given, if you would shake your head, you would be very surprised to see that whilst the fund was allocated and it was called the distress funds, it would be interesting to see what was some of the things they called distress under their tenure. So we will go there another day, but that would be very interesting because I've seen some of it. However, in our case, we did not limit the distress fund, as we call it, to just persons who were impacted maybe by a fire. That fund, whilst we did not call it a distress fund, what we did, we expended the amount of money we had available to assist the vulnerable people. And I can tell you, one of the greatest vulnerabilities that we have in St. Lucia are persons who were seeking medical assistance, Ian. Every single day, at least once a day, we would get a request, whether it be from the Office of the Prime Minister or from the Ministry of Health, of persons who were seeking medical assistance, whether it was locally, overseas, Martinique, Barbados, the US, etc., and they couldn't afford. And I'm pretty sure you would see a lot of the flyers which on social media, people are raising money. They're doing barbecues, bingos, dances, lunches, all kinds of activities to assist their loved ones in accessing healthcare. And the bulk of the money that we have spent was on healthcare, in assisting St. Lucians in going to Martinique. I think we even sent some people as far as India in assisting medical care. And that is what you call a caring government. Not having a fund and you call it a distress fund and you use it for everything else except. But to have Money is allocated to assist people in whatever areas that they needed that level of assistance.
Very well, and I think we need reminding St. Lucians about this because the Labour Party will throw out things out there in the public domain, and there are people that might believe it. This is why this radio station, Sky FM, is very important in terms of the disseminating of information, letting the people know that, look, what the Labour Party is saying there or putting out there is untrue. And they're famous for that. You know, they're famous for giving wrong information or spreading propaganda, all in an effort to win votes. That is their prime objective.
Well, I can
So
certainly tell you, yeah. I agree with you, Ian, that it is very important. And I do want to remind and advise our listeners is to recommend to your friends and to other persons that they need to listen to Sky FM and they need to watch DVD TV to get the facts, to get the substance. And every time we come on and every time I come on, I bring my paper. I have my economic and social review. I have my budget address. I have my documentation. So when I come, I don't speak things off my head. I give you numbers, I give you facts, I give you actual. And that is what we need if we want people to support us as a political party. And that's the mantra of the United Workers' Party under the leadership of Alan Shastney. The Prime Minister has insisted that when you speak and you go to the public, you come out with the numbers. Show them. Let them see and let them analyze and let them understand for themselves. And once they see, they analyze and they understand, I'm pretty sure that St. Lucians will make the right decision. But thank you very much for calling, Ian. Did you have something else to say?
Yeah, just one last thing. I just need to remind St. Lucians that when the Labour Party was in office, basic programs like the school transportation subsidy that the UWP government had put in place, they stopped that program. They stopped the school transportation subsidy, whereas the UWP government had put this program into place so that parents who could not afford to send to school via transportation, the UWP government assisted them. And during the last term of the Labour Party, that program was stopped by them. So these are the things that find St. Lucians. We're not going back.
Yep.
We're building a new St. Lucia. We're going forward, and this government has been performing well. And we need to highlight our achievements and keep up the good work, Nancy, and you're right on track.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you so much. There you have it, St. Lucia. Just a gentle reminder that yes, we are on the right track. The United Workers' Party is coming to you on a performance. Judge us by how we have performed, not what we say, but judge us by what we do and what we have done. We have another caller. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah,
Thank you for calling into Constituency Vibes.
Yes, good show, Nancy. Actually, what I wanted to touch on, I believe the first caller dealt with all where I wanted to touch on. But the message to the St. Lucia Labour Party, this Labour Party has failed this country for a number of years. And with the audio labs, the call centers, and you could see what's happening, which is the reality. And I support this show is because the truth is coming out, and this is where you could educate yourself at 93.1, because you have Champagne in the morning, you have Dr. Secret, you have Norbert in the morning again, you know, and plus you have Keeping It Real every Tuesday night on Hot 7 TV. And I believe the Labour Party see now there's not a chance for them to govern this country, because the number of projects I have seen in this country is unbelievable, because I have never seen projects, big projects, so many projects like that in this country. And I have to compliment the Prime Minister.
Yeah, and caller, I just want to remind you as well that the narrative that is trying, that those opposites are trying to create, is that we've only started those projects because we're in an election year. But St. Lucians would know, which is why I want St. Lucians to call and to remind others that this is not something that we started last year or even the year before. From day one, when we came into office, we started on the ground, and you would have seen from the various presentations during the various budget debates from year one to year two, we brought into the Parliament of St. Lucia something that you had not seen before. Mostly every single parliamentarian had PowerPoint presentations, Cole. I don't know if you remember that. And in terms of detailing the projects and the initiative undertaken in their constituency. So this is not something that we've only just started now. Those projects and the development in the various constituencies throughout the island started from day one. We hit the ground running, and we are still working, and we are still running, Cole.
Well, you see, Nancy, with all of these things that are going on, they used to criticize the Prime Minister for traveling. And it paid off. Now, where the Labour Party is caught, they caught with their pants down. They never fought. They would have seen the reality of the Honorable Prime Minister, Alan Chastney. And there's more to come, because that is the reason why they're creating all that noise and bluffing people and all kinds of things like that. But everything coming to light now. And if you could, I look at the budget speech there, and for a political leader, I mean, he don't have what it takes to be, if he gets in there, to be a prime minister. You understand? Because number one, the guy looked like a guy that's arrogant, you know, and even his other colleagues, you look at Sean Edwards, I think those guys have lost it. And I do not believe the people of St. Lucia are so stupid to go and vote these guys in Parliament. Because as far as I'm concerned, these guys are not for people. Because when you look at the path of the Labour Party, those jobs I see in there, especially the Ojo Lab, that is good job. This is job you could probably put the money aside, or even go to the bank and get a loan to buy a piece of land, buy your car, you know. You could start off with a little family if you wish to.
It's creating independence, caller. That's exactly all we're about. Let me remind you of something, caller. Do you remember?
$20 a day.
Yes.
Man, come on, man.
Do you remember during our last term in office?
Get all my certificates, and that's what I'm going for. Step. This is what that Prime Minister is all about. You know, permanent jobs, good salaries. What else you want to get? What else you want to get?
Yes, caller.
$20, you know, go in the gate and buy a dress, and then, hello, give me $1. Those people are independent. You correct.
It's creating independence, and that's what we're about.
Yeah, the Prime Minister, this is the man's vision. You know, it's to open that door, create a job for the young people. 5,000 people live in school every year, and you're sending them by roadside for clip by roadside.
Well, caller, I think you and I will both agree that there is no creativity with our opposition. They're not coming up with anything new. I mean, just a simple thing. I heard the pronouncement by the leader of the opposition, and I'm just going to look at one of them. One of the pronouncements of the great initiatives by the opposition, if they come into office, is to remove property taxes. I mean, you remember we had our 5 to stay alive, and we said to St. Lucians that we will give them an amnesty on property tax for the first 2 to 3 years. Do you know that in the last 5 years, no St. Lucian has paid property tax? Because once the property tax regime was about to end, we got hit with COVID. And so there was an extension of that non-payment of property tax. And so it's been 5 years we have not paid property tax. So what is new about this? No visionary leadership by our opposition.
Because these guys, They don't have no vision.
Yes.
Because the political leader for the opposition, the man has never told St. Lucian his plan if he's going to be the next prime minister. But he's not going to be the next prime minister. That's the reason why he knew he didn't have a plan. You understand? The only man that has a plan right now in St. Lucia is the true prime minister, the Honorable Alan Shanley.
Yeah. Well,
And that is troubling them. What is troubling them? Oh, this man always overseas, man. Nothing happening, man. All over the country, work, work, work. You hardly see a six-wheeler packed. If a six-wheeler is packed a truck, those dumb trucks, maybe it's a part the guy can get to repair his truck. All trucks working.
Yes,
And you
caller.
come and tell me, sir, under your leadership, Mr. P, I'm talking to you know.
Yeah.
Look at Marshall, the state of Marshall. For 25 years, the only guy that did some work in Marshall, we have to give the man credit. It was the honorable deceased Romanus Rantico.
Yeah.
Apart from that, this man just went in there, you know, and he has never done nothing for the people
Yeah.
of Marshall. Marshall the same way. All what he concerned about, bring jazz to Marshall. Bring jazz to Marshall, you know, the breathing it.
Well, caller, thank you so much for calling. We have a few other people on the
Yeah, no
line who's
problem,
trying
no
to
problem.
call, but
You're
yes, we
welcome.
agree with you, and thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, man. That's very good to educate the people. Thanks.
Thanks. Yes, St. Lucia, again, I want to remind you that the United Workers' Party, we're unique in the way we do things. We have a team of men and women, and I think what is amazing, St. Lucia, I want to let you know that the Prime Minister has the support of his team, his cabinet colleagues. You know, when he comes up and he says, guys, I think we should do this, we thrash it out, they sit down, they talk about it, and they buy into the vision, and that is why we are where we're at today. St. Lucia, we have another call. Good evening, caller. Thank you for calling Constituency Vibes.
Hello, good evening, Nancy. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, caller. What's about you?
I'm doing just fine. I know you from Fruitin in Kuala area,
Oh, wow.
but I want to make my contribution on the banana industry because I think I'm more qualified in that area. As I was a farmer in St. Lucia.
Okay.
So I want St. Lucians to understand that when the farmers were fighting to get the board back from the St. Lucia Prime Minister at the time, the SLC told them that if they voted for them, they would have given them back the banana industry. But the thing is, what they did, instead of just giving the farmers the industry to rule how they want, they went out there and they privatized the industry. And then that just collapsed the entire thing, Because see, what I don't understand is that these people are supposed to be smart people. They say they go to school, university, and everything. We have to join in with the rest of the Windward Islands in order to be able to make sense in producing bananas cheap to England. St. Lucia was already producing more bananas than all the Windward Islands combined. When you go and divide St. Lucia and privatize it, what do you think is going to happen to the rest of the Windward Islands?
Well, caller, I think you and I,
The whole thing,
yeah, you and I can both agree that if you look at bananas and where we're at today, all the blame, I would place all the blame squarely on the St. Lucia Labour Party, because the St. Lucia Labour Party tried through some of the delegates in the South, some of those that we know very well, the history when they said that it was Sir John that was preventing them from going forward with the banana. They had the coupe, burn people's banana sheds, etc. They came into office, and what became of it? Even after there was this big scandal with the SLBG, with the people that they put in charge, and the banana farmers has been the one at the end of the stick every single time. And now,
Yes.
even at this point in time, you have this government under the leadership of our Minister of Agriculture, Ezekiel Joseph, who is a farmer himself. We have put so much money into that banana industry since we came into office. Windfresh, NFTO, these people were broke. They had no money. They keep coming to the government time and time again to pay the farmers. I don't know if you remember, caller, that sometime last year there were months when there was no money coming into the farmers. The farmers kept exporting, they were selling, but there was money. And who bailed them out? The government. The government gave them money to be able to pay the farmers. And they have come back to the government again and say, listen, we need some money to inject into this thing. We want to do things differently. And the government said, no problem. We are willing to work with you. We understand the importance of the banana industry. We understand the importance of the farmers. And so we are willing to invest in the banana industry. So there is an investment to be made in the banana industry. But all the government is saying is, over the years, you've been the one in charge of your affairs. And what we see happening is every time you come to the government for a bailout. And the government have certain technical expertise. We have people who can provide you that support. So in addition to your technical expertise and added to the technical expertise of the government is saying, if we are going to invest, we want to sit at the board with you, to dialogue with you, to assist you in making the best decision for the banana industry. And that's all the government is asking. The government is saying, if I'm putting money into it, we need to have a stake. Both of us have a stake. You have a stake, I have a stake. We both need to sit at the table to make the decision. And I think that's fair.
Yeah, because I don't see anything wrong in that, because if the government is being asked to assist all of them, why not allow the government to be part of the decision making? Because apparently, whoever is in charge, they must have been doing something wrong. So that's why, they're not able to take care of the farmers.
Right.
Because I'm telling you, I was a director on the board of the St. Lucia Corporation after the Salvation Committee guys have left, So I was one of those who was elected on the board. And then I spent 4 years on the board. And when I saw the way things were shaping up, I realized I didn't see any future for the industry. So I told my wife, you know what, we're going to get out of St. Lucia and try to do somewhere else,
Well, caller,
at that time I decided to leave and then to go to the US,
Right. Well, this government, I can certainly tell you that we're not going to give up on the farmers. We're not going to give up on our banana farmers. We're not going to give up on the investment that we have made in the banana industry. Our intention is to continue to support our banana farmers as best as we can. We have taken a few policy positions in collaboration with NFTO and also with reference to Windfresh, and that is because we want the best for our farmers. All I want to say to our farmers who are listening here tonight, friends and families of our farmers, we're saying that the government is interested in assisting you. We want to work together with you. The proposal from the government is that we sit at the table and we work hand in hand. So let us come to the table. Let us work together. We can assist each other. We're not saying we have all the expertise. We're not saying you have all the expertise. We're saying combined. Let's combine the expertise of the government and the expertise of our farmers to sit together at the table in terms of NFTO, and let us make those decisions together. So at the end of the day, we can ensure that our reliance on the government over as we continue will be lessened. We do not want it to be that every single time we just want to come to the government for a bailout, and the government has to justify to the taxpayer, why are we pumping our taxpayers' money into the banana industry every time? And so if we're at the table, we can give justification and we can ensure that we make the right decisions. But thank you very much for calling, caller. I appreciate your call.
I want to tell you that I'm very happy with the plan that you all have for the country. Like I spoke to the Prime Minister and I told him that I'm very much impressed with him and his team. So I think you guys are on the right track. Keep things going, and then I'm hoping to see some real improvement in St. Lucia, because what I'm hearing there, it just seems to me that St. Lucia is on the way to recovery right now.
What color you need to come down and campaign with us, and you need to come down and vote. I know who you are. I'm not going to say who you are, but I think you need to get on a flight from next week when you come down. I hope you've taken your vaccine. You can do your 14 days quarantine and we can hit the ground running. So hopefully I will see you in the next 14 days.
I tried to ask the Prime Minister, because I told him I already have a ticket to come to St. Lucia in July. But then, but the other problem I have is that my ID card is expired, my passport is expired for St. Lucia. So everything I have is from the US. So I don't know if I'll even happen to get that taken care of when I get to St. Lucia.
Caller, don't worry. We'll fix you up. You know who the authorities are that you have to call to get your documentation sorted. But I'm giving you a directive tonight that you need to be in St. Lucia in the next 14 days. So put your house in order. We need you on the ground. Thank you so much for calling.
Okay, thank you, my dear. I'll call Dr. Ellen and try to see if I can change my date to travel.
Okay, no problem.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, caller. Okay, good evening. I think we have another. Do we have another caller?
Nancy, good evening.
Hi, good evening. Sorry, caller. I know you've been holding on for a little while. Thank you so much for calling Constituency Vibes.
That's all right. Let me tell you. Two questions, Nancy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any documentation on the first levy that the government was charging on the airport tax, and the second one, and who get rid of the first one, and how much it is beneficial to St. Lucia? And the other question, Nancy, is the documents that you are presenting here tonight, is it accessible to the opposition and other operatives that is on other stations?
So, caller, I'll start with your last question, and I think that the last question is a very interesting and a very good question, and I want St. Lucians to listen to me carefully. There is nothing here that I have presented that is not accessible to every single St. Lucian and every member of the opposition. And so, in terms of the social and economic review, that is accessible to them. The budget initiative that I read, once the Prime Minister has prepared his appropriation bill, a copy of it is printed and presented to every single parliamentarian, and that includes the opposition. The budget, the estimates, that big book that you see we carry around that has the estimates for every government agency, department, etc., that is also available to the opposition and to all of them. So sometimes, which is why sometimes I find that there is a need for me to call some other talk shows and other talk show hosts to say to them that, listen, you can't continue to speak mistruths and to misguide the population, because you have the facts, you have the information. But what they do, they twist it, they turn it, they cut a little piece there, they paste a little piece there to try and paint the picture that they want to paint. And at the end of the day is to try to show that we are not doing what it is that we're supposed to do. So yes, to your question, that members of the opposition and of late, I know as well, the budget statement, all of these appropriation bill, the economic and social review, they are online, they are available on the government's website. So every single St. Lucian can go on those websites and they can access or download those reports. They can read it for themselves, they can analyze it for themselves, and if they have any questions, they can feel free to call to ask the questions with reference to that. In terms of the airport development tax, I think we need to do a little history and a little background. And so when we were in government between 2006 and 2011, we recognized that there was a need for the redevelopment, renovation of the Hiranora International Airport. You would recognize, perhaps persons who have traveled would see the difference between Hiranora International Airport in St. Lucia and other international airports overseas. And so at the time, you had Prime Minister Shasney, he was the minister responsible for tourism at the time. And again, we came up with this innovative way of funding the redevelopment of the airport. And so we instituted what we call an airport development tax. And that airport development tax was a tax that was levied on persons coming in or traveling in via the airport. And whilst persons were complaining and saying, well, St. Lucians pay in the tax, we recognized that a greater majority of the persons traveling via 2 and 3 or 4 hour international airport were visitors. They were not necessarily locals. And so it was a novel and creative way for us to initiate the funding of the airport development. Lo and behold, we instituted that tax. I stand corrected, but there may have been about $60 million in that, because the money was going into a lockbox. And there may have been about that, and I stand corrected, but it's about $60 million, and I can give you the figures, perhaps another, the exact number. But we lost the election in 2011. And the Labour Party came in. And so 2 things happened. The Labour Party opened the lockbox. I don't know, caller, where or how that money has been spent. I don't know, and I stand corrected, whether any account has been given in terms of the spending of that money, except perhaps that money was taken and just placed into the consolidated funds and used as usual funding. But they stopped the airport development tax, and they wanted to go into a PPP with another supplier for the airport development. And that PPP, they removed the airport development tax. That PPP meant that the partner would have come up with the money to redevelop and to build the airport. He was using his own funds, and what would happen is that he would manage and run the airport for 30 years. He would be given the airport for 30 years to run, to manage, to operate, and every single cent that came in or that was collected at that airport would go to that developer so that he could pay off the loan or the monies that he had spent in developing that airport. And at the end of the day, St. Lucia would not see a cent of it, and until he paid it back. And I don't know if you remember when we did the calculation, caller, the amount of money that they would have spent would have been about $400 million. They were going to make double that amount of money on the heads of St. Lucians by running our airport for over 30 years in managing the airport and collecting that funds. And so by the grace of God, they lost the election. And so when we came into power, we decided that the best way was to go back to that airport development tax. And I can tell you that initiative has gone down very well. We have used that box, as we say, to go to the Taiwanese government and to say, hey, we have a source of funding. This is how much money comes in for the airport development tax. And can you give us a loan at concessionary rates, which is much better than letting somebody operate your airport for 30 years. I think the loan agreement we have with the Taiwanese is that for the first 5 years, we don't pay any interest. We have a moratorium on payment, and then we then only pay the interest, and the interest rate is very low. I think it's less than 4% or 5% thereabout. So it is a really concessionary loan that we have gotten from the Taiwanese government for the redevelopment of our airport. And St. Lucians would appreciate that this is a much better deal than going the way of the PPP and having somebody run and operate our airport for 30 years.
So what you are saying, Madam Charles. So what you are saying, Madam Charles, is that had we stuck in the first instance with the first levy, by now we would not have had all that problems as to going back to reinstate, because we would have been picking up that levy for 5 years, because remember the UWP lose the election in 2011, so we would have picked up that levy for 5 years and continue into this year and into this other 5 years, and by then we should have enough money now to have our airport running and in good shape.
Well, the construction of the airport, if they had stuck to the plan of the United Workers' Party when they came in, the construction of the airport should have been a long ways ahead, perhaps even completed, because I fail to understand that it would have taken 4 years or 5 years or thereabout. But the fact that they stopped it and they spent years again, that's what the Labour Party is very good at. Anything they get, I don't know if you remember Honorable Guy Joseph in his presentation with reference to St. Jude. They got St. Jude at 80%, they stopped, they started again, and then they brought it back to, we got it at 50%. That is reverse. I don't understand how it happened. It's the same thing with the airport. They stopped the tax, they say they're going to bring in a better proposal, and they spent 5 years and never even commenced the project on the airport. And so we have started the construction of the airport. The Prime Minister indicated in his budget statement that the project has started. We have pikes going in to prepare for the foundation, etc. And this United Workers' Party government, this United Workers' Party administration is the one who's going to redevelop, and we're going to complete the renovation of the Hiranora International Airport. That is what we do. We are called team workers for a reason. We do. We don't just talk, but we do.
Thank you very much for the clarification.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for calling, and have a good evening. Yes, St. Lucia. Time is running. I'm being told that it's 10 o'clock already on Constituency Vibes. We're having such fun I'm talking about the various initiatives and the projects of the United Workers' Party government administration in the various constituencies throughout the island. And St. Lucia, you would appreciate, as I said, that this is a government of workers. Team workers is what we call, because we do the work. We don't only walk the walk, but we don't only talk the talk, but we walk the walk. We have another caller. Good evening, caller. Thank you so much for calling. Oh, I think we may have lost the caller. Sorry, caller. Maybe perhaps I took your call a little too late, but you can feel free to call back. I'm being told that they will allow me a little extra time to have a few more calls coming in on constituency vibes tonight. But yes, St. Lucia, as I said, this is Team Workers, Team United Workers Party. The cruise ship terminal, I can tell you, perhaps even today, as of today, the Prime Minister and a team from Slasper, they went down to Viewfort. You would hear about it maybe a little later this week, that the cruise ship terminal is still back on the top burner. This is a project that we're looking at the holistic development of the South, and the intention for the cruise ship terminal is to ensure that we can now have cruise ship coming into the harbor in the South. We have a really good harbor in the South, is to develop it and to see that the tourists can come in via the South as well as coming in via the North. So the holistic development of the South that we've been speaking about over the years, it's coming on stream. And we are very, very, very pleased with that. We have another caller. Good evening, caller. Thank you so much for calling Constituency Vibes.
Good evening, Nancy. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. What's about you, caller?
I am wonderful.
I hope the program has been very informative tonight for you.
Oh, very informative indeed. Very much so.
I can tell you, caller, that I am on Facebook. I'm following the comments on Facebook. The guys who are on Facebook, I can see your comments. I see your hearts. I see your flames. I see your comments. So thank you so much.
Yes. But I just want to touch briefly, because I know that is, I just want to touch very briefly on a couple of points. One, that all the St. Lucians should realize, number one, is that Prime Minister Alan Shastri is a man with a plan. He came into office with a plan for St. Lucia, and he's working that plan. He has a vision. The SLP, on the other hand, and it is so very clear, they have nothing, they have no plan, they have no vision. The Bible itself tells you that where there is no vision, the people perish.
That's correct.
And so if we put in the Labour Party there with no vision, we are going to perish.
Well, caller, I can certainly tell you, for the last couple of months, I don't know if the opposition is listening, but that's what everybody has been asking. What's your plan? All you come to do is to criticize the plan. At least the United Workers' Party government and the administration have a plan. We have a vision, and we are presenting it to the people. What's yours? Your plan can certainly your plan can't be to just criticize the government. Lay out your plan and let St. Lucians decide which one they think is the better plan for the development of the country. And like the old people say, lanuka isav kileski nom. Lo mete sa wa, flambo mete sa lia, then pepla kai gade kileski plimek yo kai decide. But put your plan, put it forward.
But you see, they cannot put a plan because they have no plan. You see, criticizing is easy.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can criticize. You could have the great Dunstan St. Thomas come up and, paint a beautiful painting. And the donkey could go and deface it, But can that donkey repair the painting? No. Can that donkey come up with a better painting? And I'm not comparing the Labour Party to a donkey. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just using an analogy. Now, the reason why I believe that they are making so much noise now is because they are really frightened. You see, the Prime Minister and the government of the United Workers' Party has shown them up. The Prime Prime Minister has come out with a plan. They were criticizing him non-stop from the outset. But St. Lucia is seeing the fruits of his labors, the fruits of his efforts, to the extent that even during the pandemic, things have been happening at a pace that they never happened during the Labour Party tenure.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're scared, they're frightened, they don't know what to do.
Kala, let me just give you an interesting figure just to substantiate what you're saying. Do you know that even in the midst of COVID, when you look at the unemployment figures for St. Lucia, under COVID, our unemployment figures were much lower than the Labour Party's unemployment figure without COVID and in their good years.
But there you are.
Interesting.
You have not surprised me. Because we can see we are in the country. We are there. The Labour Party is making a lot of noise, but it is all noise and no substance. Now, caller, I will tell you, there is a guy, I cannot call him a gentleman. There is a guy, no, the name guy is honorable. So there is a fella on the Labour side called Ernest Hizet.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that, in my opinion, this man is a disgrace to St. Lucia. Okay? He is a total disgrace. And as far as I am concerned, I do not want to hear anything from Ernest Hizet until he can tell me about Jufari. Until Ernest Hizet can come out and tell St. Lucians about the Jufari affair, what happened, how Jufari ended up getting diplomatic passport. Ernest Hizet has no legitimacy to speak on anything in St. Lucia. No legitimacy at all. Now, I have to say sadly, I mean, yes, I should listen to him, but when this man is speaking, he nauseates. I get physically nauseated. Like if I have to continue listening to him or watching him, I would puke. So I have to turn off my TV.
well, caller, I can certainly tell you it's one of the things that that differentiates Prime Minister Alan Chasney from all the members of the opposition, and Prime Minister has consistently said perhaps it's one of his flaws. But he's the type of person who will tell you what he thinks, and he will come out and tell you the truth no matter how difficult and no matter how it sounds. And so at the end of the day, I don't know that the Prime Minister has shied away from answering any question about anything. But it's unfortunate that we cannot say the same of the members on the opposite, that we ask them questions and they don't answer. They just slip and slide and they go everywhere else instead of answering the questions directly.
Nancy, you don't have to put in nice words. You know.
I'm on national television, caller, so.
Okay, well, okay, fine, but I can say it straight. Yogamati. Okay? Yogamati. And one other thing I wanted to comment on. There is this, well, I can call him gentleman, Mr. Sean Edwards. He made some foolish, exceedingly foolish remarks about how, he would get a taxi or something and go and take people that body. Doesn't Sean Edwards remember that he was a minister of government not too long ago?
Well, caller, in terms of the debate with reference to cannabis, it's really unfortunate that the Labour Party up till last year, when we perhaps were at the point where we made some, we gave out some information where the committee was at a point that they had now brought out a recommendation, we had never heard anything from the opposition with reference to the cannabis matter and what their policy position would have been. It was only after we announced what our policy position would be, what were the recommendations coming out of the committee that was put in place, the prospective legislation, which is currently now with the AG's chambers, that they're now jumping and piggybacking on the cannabis issue. It's the same thing with Ojo Labs. Up till until about 3 when we 3 years ago, when we came in and we brought in the initiative with Ojo Labs in getting young people employed. And I saw a message, somebody said to me, explain what is Ojo Lab. Essentially, caller, it is similar to a call center where persons are employed, but they use a new technology called artificial intelligence, where they're teaching computers how to think for themselves. That is a summary of what it is. A computer is only able to execute initiatives or commands that you give it. In terms of artificial intelligence, what they're doing, they're programming the computer in such a way that it more or less responds to things at the prompting, almost like a Siri-like on your phone, on your iPhone, in a nutshell. So that's new technology for St. Lucians.
Yes, let me jump in here and say to you that when it comes to Ojo Lab, I can safely say that I know a little more than the average layman in St. Lucia. So, yes, and the explanation you gave is very good, because a lot of people would have heard, but they wouldn't know what it's about. And another thing they may not be aware of, that when they started out, there was a young St. Lucian who he did the training, and I mean, he was so good. He himself then started creating programs. So that is fantastic. Now, for example, again, the leader of the opposition saying they will close Ojo Labs. Again, it is simply because they have no plan. The Labour Party can only think in terms of destruction. Similarly, and along the thoughts of destruction, when the Labour Party came into office in 2011, I am from the Babono constituency.
Mm-hmm.
The Rep. Mr. Joseph had just before the election constructed some vending booths right in the Babono Junction.
Oh, I remember that story, caller. I remember seeing this on television. That was a news item.
Yes.
And you have a famous lady who came in. Yes.
Oh, well, I mean, you may not want to say, but
no. Sometimes it's better not to mention the names of some of those people. You give them too much credence.
Yes. But you see, all they wanted to do was come and destroy the booths. To date, there has been nothing. They have no ideas. They have no plans. They have no vision. All they can do is destroy, criticize, bad talk, pull down. So I want to encourage our St. Lucian people, our Flambeau people, keep your eyes and your ears open. And when the day comes, turn out in large numbers and vote the United Workers' Party in, kick out the Labour Party. Leave them in opposition.
Yep.
That is where they belong.
And they're doing a very good job of it, as well. They've become professionals at being opposite.
They cannot
so
even oppose properly. Because you see, if they were opposing, if they could oppose properly, they themselves would have some plans. But they have no plans.
Yeah.
All they can do is like follow the leader. Mm-hmm. When the Prime Minister says something, then jump and criticize it.
Yeah.
Of course, whatever plan the Prime Minister comes with, or anybody comes with, it will have flaws because they are not perfect. Yeah. But that's all they can do. And the last thing I want to say to you, a little earlier, you said you were wondering whether, or you wanted to make Ricky proud, etc., etc. I want to say to you, Ricky must be looking at the program and saying that he wants to be just like you.
Thank you very
Because
much, caller. I don't think
you
it's
do
fair
it very well.
for you to have me blushing on national television with your comments. But thank you so much.
You're
Have a good
welcome.
night.
Yes.
Thank you very much again to the caller. St. Lucia, I do want to let you know that the United Workers' Party, we do have a plan. We've presented it to you. The Prime Minister continues to expound on building a new St. Lucia. We've laid the foundation, and what we are coming to you in the next couple of weeks ahead is to say to you, here's our track record, here's what we've done, and give us the opportunity to continue to build on that foundation. We have another caller. Good evening, caller. Thank you so much for calling Constituency Vibes.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening, caller. Can you speak a little bit louder so we can hear you?
Yes, I shall.
Okay.
I'm not one who normally calls television programs,
Right.
and I will also disclose that up until today, I have never voted.
Okay.
However,
Thank you for disclosing that, and thank you for giving the opportunity to call. I hope it had something to do with the facts and the information presented here tonight.
well, it does, and it also, but what I really want to touch on was something that I saw on a famous program that airs on Thursdays.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of disturbed me. The host of that program put up some figures on the screen last week, and attempted to give an appreciation of the figures without having necessary information regarding the figures. If somebody knows finance or accounting, when you look at a ledger, general ledger, it will have high level summary detail of your expenses, your revenue, and eventually the profitability. My good friend was looking at the item on the ledger which pertained rental, and I remember most of it, pretty clearly. So he took a year-on-year analysis of the rental, government's expenditure on rental from 2009, 10, 11, 12, and 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And on average, that was in the region of circa $48 point something million per year. Then, from 2016 onwards, the rental figures started climbing, started going up. And in 2021, the number stood at 72 point odd million. And my good friend, learned friend in his particular silo of knowledge, which is legal matters, attempted to tell the St. Lucian public that the Honorable Prime Minister and the Unity government was doing so terrible. And that's the reason why the figures had moved from 48 point whatever million to 72 point something million. But any astute person in finance, or any astute person who is attempting to give that kind of information, and I would give him some advice, I would challenge him. Go and find the backing information. Go and find the respective accounts that will roll up into that final rental figure. That's where you will get the justification and a better understanding. Let me take back the word justification. That's where you'll get a better appreciation and an understanding of where these numbers came from.
So caller, let me just tell you off the bat. I mean, I'm just going to add a little bit to what you were saying in terms of the understanding of the figures. I'll just give you one instance, if you remember and if you have a very good memory. The first month when we came into office, the very first
Darling,
month. Hold
on. You don't even have to go there. Because I, as a layman, I'm not in government, but I have a master's degree in business administration, so I have an appreciation of finance.
Right.
You know, I was at a very high level in a conglomerate, a regional conglomerate across the Caribbean.
Right.
So I'm not a fool. I'm not a sheep or a goat. My intention here tonight is to elucidate the minds of St. Lucian to let them know that a rolled-up summary figure, this is the reason why when an auditor audits a business or directors, they give it as a director's report, which gives you an appreciation of what the numbers contained in the figures that you see
That's correct.
are all about. But in his haste to attempt to make a fool of the Prime Minister and talk about his mismanagement of the country, he didn't do his background information to find out why. Why did it move from 48 point something to 70 something? We had several instances of government offices that were in mold and were in a damn mess.
Exactly, Colin.
We couldn't leave the people there.
From day one.
We had, COVID started. You have to rent hotels.
And, and don't talk about the maintenance as well. And there was absolutely no money for the maintenance of those government buildings and those places that we have. Nothing.
My attempt tonight is to try to shed some light on people who have absolutely no idea what they're talking about, but have a big mouth and a loud mouth and want to talk a lot. You know, get your information. Go do your background research. You know, you made a fool of himself coming up on television. Oh, you know, he wants to understand this is Shasti mathematics that you know, $4 $5 minus $4 is $1.50. You know, and play the clip over only to realize you're making an absolute fool of yourself. You know, you have to come and eat humble pie and say, you know, he said $5.50. So
I think in addition to that, caller, what my friend has always been trying to do as well is to tie in certain things that are happening in government to the Prime Minister's father. And I think every St. Lucian know that the Prime Minister's father has always and will remain a businessman. And at the end of the day, the Prime Minister's father's business has nothing to do with the business of the country. And so I heard one of them speaking to lotteries, for example, and say, oh, we take out lottery where it was and we put it in the Prime Minister's father's building. I worked in a company called Food Center before I came into government call-up. And Food Center was located in Colony House, which belongs to the Prime Minister's father. And the St. Lucia National Lottery's office was located right next door to me, Food Center, in Colony House. That was under the Labour Party administration, in the Prime Minister's father's building. That's where National Lotteries was. It's only when we came into government there was an issue with mold in that section of the building, and so they moved us to another section of the building still at Colony House. So there was nothing new about it, but in their haste to try and tie things together, they want to add 1 + 1 and say it equals 11. They don't even realize what it is that they're saying.
You know, I feel really sorry. You know, and at the end of the day, my fear is for our country.
I don't think you should fear, caller. I mean, if I were to advise you, I'll tell you, there are many people like you out there who are forward-thinking. They analyze, they listen to information, they fact-find for themselves. And I think perhaps for me, my purpose here tonight, and maybe as I continue, is to give St. Lucian sufficient facts and information, things they may not have thought about, to add to the pot so that they can be more critical and analytical in their thinking so that they can make the decision. So have no fear, St. Lucians. There are many more St. Lucians like you out there who think, they analyze, they read for themselves, etc. And I have faith and I believe in St. Lucians that they will make the right decision.
I'm happy that this election cycle that there is adequate, and I hope that as the election comes nearer, there is more dissemination of information to St. Lucians from the United Workers' Party in particular.
There will be, but caller,
to drive that so that people, the average St. Lucian, understand, they know, they have an appreciation of what's going on.
Yeah.
They have an appreciation of how the projects, because I'm going to say this, no government takes the projects that they do and put them on their back and go with it, The roads that have been built, they've been built for St. Lucians. The initiatives that have been driven, they've been driven for St. Lucians.
Yep, for sure.
The Prime Minister is not going to take it up on his back and go with it because that's his, And one thing that we need to eradicate in our politics in St. Lucia, the idea that if there is a good idea that one government starts, the notion of wiping the state clean and shoving it aside when somebody else takes over, that needs to stop.
But caller, before I go, I think you're going to be my last caller tonight. So let me end. Let's try to see if we can end on a high. Is there anything I can do or say to persuade you, since you said you've never voted before, that you're going to vote in the upcoming
there's no
election?
About whether I'm going to vote this year.
Yes, we're ending on a high tonight. Caller, you have made my night. At least I can say that we have convinced one person to change their mind about not voting, and we have convinced one voter in St. Lucia to decide to support the administration of the United Workers' Party and the good work we're doing.
Years of age, it will be the first time I'm voting.
Oh my! Congratulations, caller. I think you deserve for me to meet you in person. You know who I am and you know where I'm at. Come and introduce yourself.
Will do. Take care. Have a good one.
Okay. Good night. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, caller. St. Lucia, we ended on a high on our program tonight. So we had a gentleman who just called and he said he had never voted, and listening to our policies and perhaps observing the work of the United Workers' Party over the last 5 years and our record. I am very grateful, caller, and I'm very grateful for all the callers tonight for your support and for your call. I'm happy that you have made up your mind to vote for the United Workers' Party. St. Lucia, I want to remind you tonight that the St. Lucia United Workers' Party is coming to you. We have come to you when we came in 2016 with a plan to build a new St. Lucia. We have started the work. We have built the foundation. The Prime Minister always said that he needed a second term to continue the work. You can see the visionary leadership. You can see the projects. You can see that we are not doing things the normal way, but we are coming to you to say to you that, hey, St. Lucia, let us continue with team workers. Let us continue with the United Workers' Party to ensure that we can benefit and we can continue to build a new St. Lucia. So St. Lucia, I'm sorry, I still see the phones are ringing, but unfortunately I've been told that we're out of time. They've given me an extra 25 minutes or 28 minutes for that matter. We had a really good time tonight. I'm Ricky. I hope you're watching. Your callers didn't let you down. Your team, they came through, and I saw you guys on Facebook. My team, United Workers' Party, you guys were on Facebook supporting all the way. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for watching the fans on GVD TV and Sky FM. Everyone, St. Lucia, we had a wonderful time. I'm hoping that we can do it again some other time. Next week, hopefully, Ricky, you'll be feeling a little bit better and you can continue to host your program. But I just want you to know that I've got you covered, my brother. In case you have any hiccups, I'm there to support you. St. Lucia, thank you. I just want to remind you, remember the protocols. It's after 9. So we have curfew, so I'm hoping that everybody is inside. I am only out because I am on the television and on the radio tonight. So take care. Thank you very much and have a good evening, St. Lucia. Thank you and bye.
Crossfire, discussing the issues. Norbert Williams, Champagne, Dr. Secret, and Ring the Bell. Thursdays, 8 p.m. on Sky FM and GVD TV. Don't you miss it.
I'm not gonna bye. family, Mamai Mikudno. Tune in to GVD TV 115 and Facebook Live this and every Tuesday for Let's Talk with Auntie Gail, where we will discuss what is happening in our constituency and the progress we have made so far. Anu pale epi Auntie Gail, tule madi asu GVD TV channel yon sek. Mikudno, we've got this. Let's talk. Nous tout c'est yon famille à Mikudno.
Hello everyone, I'm Norbert Williams, right here on Sky FM 93.1. Join me Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. for the morning edition of Keeping It Real. And on Tuesdays and Fridays, Minerva Ward joining me from Canada, right near the North Pole. Although it's cold over there, it's gonna be hot in here. Don't you forget, Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. on GVD TV and streaming live on Facebook. Don't you miss it.